Before welding, you have to select the polarity, which is done through this lead here. It can either be positive for gas welding or negative for gasless. The earth cable will then go into the other reciprocal. So for now we'll set it up for gas welding. Tube sips and slips in there. Then you do up the Euro fitting of the torch, making sure that you can see the liner there. Sometimes it will need to be cut to length and you'll have a small piece of wastage. The other guide that has changed is this one here. That needs to have the aluminium Teflon liner guide in there. So we place it in there, do the screw up.
Right.
Okay, you select MIG welding. You press the button, then you select your material. We'll select aluminium. Then you select the thickness of the material is up in the corner there, and you can see you can dial whatever thickness you require. As you turn that up, this will change, and so will the voltage, and so will the wire feeder. Then you can go to what they call voltage, and you can trim it slightly. If you look at this picture here, you'll see the change in the waveform. More spray that way, higher voltage. Notice the percentage button in the corner there. If for some reason you cannot get it to weld smoothly, turn all default settings back to 0. Inductance can change the characteristic of the weld, reducing the splatter. It goes to minus 50 to plus 50. Again, start at 0 and then tune as you like. 2T, 4T. 2T simply means on, off. 4T means on, it stays welding until you trigger it again, off. In other words, a latching feature. Most people tend to use 2T, on, off. This is wire size. Either select your 1mm or your 1.2. We find 1.2 on a pulse MIG is because of bigger wire, it will feed smoother. Now we'll change to pulse MIG. When you change to pulse MIG, the machine will ask you some other questions. What size wire would you want? Again, 1mm or 1.2. Aluminium, stainless steel, whichever material you are going to weld, we'll select aluminium. Simply scroll. Now it will ask you again the thickness of the material, which you can then just dial up, in this case to a maximum of 4.6 millimeters, 142 amps. This is the pulse frequency. Note again the 0%. The machine, because it is Synergic, has worked out the best setting for that thickness material to that frequency. Again, set it to 0, and that will probably be the ultimate setting. Duty cycle. This is how long it stays at the high level and for how long. Note 8.4. So the maximum on at 200 amps is 8.4 mil with a wire speed of 12 meters per minute and a voltage of 24. Again, the voltage can be tuned positive and negative depending on your welding procedure. We'll now go to double pulse. Now this switches between two levels, a high and a low. So not only is it pulsing, but it's switching between a high and a low voltage. Again, it will ask you the wire, it'll ask you the material, it'll now ask you the thickness, but it will have a second question. voltage, pulse frequency. This is how quickly it will change from high to low. It's in basically cycles per second. So one would be every 1 second the cycle will change from high to low, high to low. This is the duty cycle. This is how long it will stay at the settings. Base feeding. This is the bottom setting, so your lower setting. As you change this, it'll change your overall thickness because your lower setting is now coming up. Note the change. Latching trigger, 2T, 4T, double pulse, 1.2, alley, and your main adjustment. Notice that it is only going to 5.2 now because some of the time you're at a lower current. So it's the average of the two currents. This one and the base feeding. So you have peak feeding, and you have base feeding. Even the duty cycle will change the voltage because the more it stays at one level, the hotter the welder is. So all the parameters will change your thickness. So sometimes it is good to scroll through and basically stop on this peak feeding here and look at your thickness. And then from there you'll probably just turn it up and leave the other controls where they are.